Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is Councilwoman Patrice Robinson. I am so excited to have you today for Council in Your Neighborhood. We have some exciting information and a great guest on today. But first, I want to say, welcome back. We're ready to roll again with our Council in Your Neighborhood town hall meeting. We want to appreciate the people behind the scenes with Kazuki and Network, and I want to thank the staff of TVA and the Memphis City Council for making this available to us. As you will see on your screen, if you have any comments or any questions, please type them in and I will be able to see them and share those with our guest speaker on today. So let's get started. I am so excited that we are back again, and let's keep this moving so that we can get information in our community. Make sure you share it with your friends and family, neighbors as well, co-workers, so that they can know what's going on with TVA, the city of Memphis, as well as MLGW. So today, our guest is Mr. Mark Yates. To you, you may know him from other organizations in the community, but rather than for me to share that information with you, I want our guest to talk about his background, what he's done here in Memphis, and where he has landed today to share with us that information. So, Mark, are you there?
Yes, I am,
Good
Councilwoman.
evening. Share just a little about your background so they'll know who you are.
Okay, all right. Bellevue Junior High, Central High School. Those are my educations in Memphis. Everybody in Memphis always wants to know where you went to high
Where
school.
you went to school. That's right.
I went to Central, the high school for all those who know that. Uh,
Whitehaven is the high school.
but we were not going to argue. We're not going to start off arguing. We talked about that. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, I graduated from Howard University, Washington, D.C., economics and finance. Also, Vanderbilt University, I have my executive master's in business administration. And I also have done work with several financial institutions around town. I was with First Tennessee for over a few decades. And I've also been with gosh, it's just wow. I was a chief of staff in the U.S. House of Representative with Harold Ford Jr. I was his first chief of staff, and what else have I done? I've recently I was the president of the Black Business Association, and I sit on a chair River City Capital board of directors right now. So shout out to my board members and the staff over there, and just a lot of other things. Just civics of wife of 26 years, former Veronica Shannon, and two daughters. So that's me. That's who I am. Memphis, native Memphian.
Native Memphian. So where are you now? Talk to us about your new position. How
I
long
am
you've been there and who are you with?
I am with Tennessee Valley Authority, the TVA, and I've been here since January of this year. So what is that? About 10 months, coming up
Yeah.
on 10 months now. And my role it's a newly created role, regional vice president of the West region. And I like to tell everybody or anybody who will listen, the West region comprises, of course, Memphis, but also what's between the rivers. So for people in East Tennessee, I'll say we have a river over here, and it's the Mississippi River, but also we extend all the way out to the Tennessee River, and then we go all the way from Paris in the north, and we'll jump over the line just a little bit. We have one LPC, which is a local power company, Gibson Electric. They jump over into Kentucky, Western Kentucky, and we go all the way down to Meridian, Mississippi. If anybody's ever been to Meridian, Mississippi, it's a good little ways down there. It's down there.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's a we've got 52. We service TVA services 52 power companies in this region, and there are three others: the south, the east, and the north. And but that is my role. So we shout out to all my colleagues and my coworkers and everybody who's doing good work. And the lights are on, so they're doing great work.
That's great. So I want to know what is the relationship between TVA and Memphis? And I think I saw somewhere in my email this week that there's a street with a number on it, and it has something to do with TVA. You might want to share that as well.
Well, thank you for asking. So in 1933, if I can just give you just a little bit of background, President Roosevelt signed what's known as the TVA Act. TVA is a agency, if you will, a corporate agency of the United States federal government. There are other agencies, and primarily you'll think Freddie Mac, Fannie, Ginnie Mae. Those are all agencies and de facto United States federal government type entities. But in 1934, on November 6th, the city of Memphis, people such as yourself, Councilman Robinson, elected to become affiliated with TVA. And so we wanted to electrify Memphis. It's hard to think about, but electricity wasn't ubiquitous in 1933 and 1934. So thereabout, when we signed that agreement between TVA and the city of Memphis, at that point in time, it was on November 6th, and we have downtown. If you're ever driving by the old K97 on Union Avenue, if you're headed east, it's on the left side. There's a little stub street aside, and that right there is what we call that's what we call November 6th Street. So you'll
Okay.
look up and you'll see November 6th, but that that memorializes that signing right there.
Okay, thank you. I
Fun fact.
appreciate you sharing that with us. So let's go downtown and let's look for the November 6th Street. Tell
Yes.
us about your public power model and how it directly benefits the citizens of Memphis. And we need to know, what happens with in that relationship over time.
Okay. So the public power model, as I mentioned, was designed by President Roosevelt during right there during the Great Depression. And so it was to electrify, not initially, but it led to uh, the TVA Act led to the electrification of the Tennessee Valley, which comprises, there are 7 contiguous states around Tennessee. So Tennessee is very unique, and the Valley is what we call it. There are 10 million residents in the Valley, and in that 10 million residents, we provide power to all of those people. So with that, we are not an investor-owned utility. We are
And what does that mean for citizens?
so we don't.
We don't understand what that means.
Well, let's talk about it then. We are not owned by private investors. We are, again, an agency of the federal government. We are part of your federal agency, but we receive no tax dollars, which is very unique and interesting. So all of our revenues are derived from services that we provide. So with that, we are here to benefit those that we serve, including our customers, including the end users, including the people of the Valley. And so over that 87 years, if you will, that we've been providing power, this is something that we're not looking to prop up or provide any type of remuneration to our shareholders, which is very important. One of my roles was as an investor relations officer for an organization. So sometimes that could be very difficult if you have shareholders and customers. Who do you benefit? But ours is always in the benefit of the people we serve, the customers.
Okay. So, what is TVA doing to help our community through the crisis that we've just been through and still in, COVID-19?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. There's so much that we've done. If you look back over the course of 2020, one of the first things that we were able to do is um, we looked we took $20 million in bill credits for MLGW as part of TVA's pandemic relief program. We've also extended that program into 2021. So that's $20 million. An additional $400,000 went to match MLGW's efforts to provide 550,000 meals through food banks and utility support programs during the pandemic. For 2020, if I'm thinking correctly, we had about $16.5 million in tax equivalent payments for Memphis and Shelby County. TVA returns a percentage of our sales tax revenues for the previous year in the form of pilots, payments in lieu of taxes. We put, I think, we made a donation of $325,000 to the NAACP in Memphis and 245 plus or minus to the Urban League for building improvements, energy upgrades. We've donated significantly to the Greater Memphis Chamber of Commerce, upwards of about $200,000, $100,000 to support holiday needs for Latino Memphis. We realize that the pandemic is not over. There's still food insecurity, so we continually are analyzing how we can be good stewards. We have some ideas on what to do here in early December. But we actively volunteer throughout the community, and so we live here. So this is what we do. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Actually, there's a lot more.
Well, I plan on having some additional conversations with you. The community is really interested and they want to know how you plug in, how you fit in, and what we can expect moving forward. So I have several questions here in I'm looking at the comments now and the questions that people are asking. But to lead up to those questions, MLGW has opened an RFP process, and that's a request for proposal, and is accepting bids for a new power supplier. Is TVA going to participate in this process? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Well, the short answer is yes, we will participate in the RFP process. As you well know, being chairwoman of the MLGW committee, MLGW issued 3 RFPs for power providers, and that's a request for proposals for outside firms, outside organizations, concerns to respond with a bid on how they would provide power. So a little bit of history going back to that is that RFP, it's not just, hey, can you provide us with low rates, but there was a PSAT program, and then there was an IRP, which provided an indication to MLGW of what would be required, what would be the power requirements in order to have the 3 RFPs. So let's go through those really quickly. The first
Okay.
of which was transmission, and I believe that is due in the mid to late spring of next year. It may even stretch into July. The second, so it's transmission, generation, and the last is renewables and other. So the generation, I believe, is due sometime early spring, and the renewables and other is due in December, early December of 2021. So we're contemplating a response to these, to one of these, if not all. But we're really thinking heavily on how we want to respond.
Okay. So, what is TVA offering as a part of its response to the RFP? And I know that that's usually confidential information. However, you can give us
Yeah,
just a little snippet of what we may be able to expect.
sure. TVA provides what we like to say the five nines, and that's 99.999% reliability. Five nines.
And what does that mean to me as a uh, person who uses the utilities that are provided by Memphis Light Gas and Water?
Yeah, due to the planning over the decades and continuous planning into the future, reliability means that when you call for electricity, which is every day in every device, in every light, in every function, in every hospital room, in every situation, that you do have electricity, and that's what we do, and that
And
involves
what's that percentage again? 99 point what?
9999, five nines.
Wow, almost 100%.
Yeah,
That is awesome.
it really is. And that's the value of the public power model,
Right.
because we are investing, we continue to invest. And also, we provide that's proven reliability and a cleaner supply of electricity. If you look at the type of electricity we are generating, it's some of the cleanest in the whole country, in the whole world, actually. So that's important. The partnership with MLGW and TVA, it provides the third largest energy cost in the nation amongst our peers. So you got to look at what you're paying on your MLGW bill. I think they're about. I looked here recently. There may be 6 to 8 different categories of things that we're paying for on that bill. One of which is electricity. So you can say you got a high, MLGW, light bill, but it's not all light bill. It's stormwater, it's gas, it's water, um, it just goes trash pickup. It goes. There are a number of things, but electricity is one of those components, and we are amongst the lowest, and of course most reliable. But also, as we look beyond power, I've talked about the civic things that we do, but we're also providing additional savings, and how do we upgrade, and how do we look at what we are doing, and so, an interesting. Let me tell you this really quickly. This is something that I picked up on earlier this week. I was talking to some of our people in power ops, and they were talking about weather planning and long-term forecast, and then matching off the long-term forecast with what we have in terms of our system and how that works. I just share that because that's something that you know you're not going to get somewhere else.
Right.
I'll just leave it like that. Somebody who has the history, understands the weather patterns, understands what to expect, has done it. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, we're about to start talking about the Allen Restoration Plant very shortly. But as it relates to Memphis Light Gas and Water's RFP, will TVA continue with this project if MLGW decides to select someone other than TVA?
I've said it before. We will see the project through. We've made the commitment. We have 4 other partners in that project, which includes MLGW, the City of Memphis, Shelby County Government, and the Port Authority / Edge. So we are talking to our partners, and we're in the final stages of receiving all the authorizations from TDEC. That's Tennessee Department of Environmental Conservation, in order to begin the remediation process. But we are in agreement with our partners. But again, Councilwoman, it's about seeing it through, and it's about safety and protecting the aquifer. Those are the things. And
Oh,
yeah, TDEC has talked to your colleagues, I understand, here recently, and they have they're starting to understand the gravity of the situation.
Okay. So I'm going to start with I have one person here who has several questions, and his name is Justin Pearson. And Justin asks a question: what is the arsenic content of the coal ash? Do you know what that is?
That I don't know. I don't know what the arsenic concentration. There were trace elements that were detected once TVA put the wells, uh, the monitoring wells at the Allen plant, the old Allen site at uh, the retention ponds. But I don't know what the levels are and what they have. It was enough for us to want to begin the remediation process. But let me step back a little bit and go through the history of this if I can. Uh,
Yes, please do.
yeah, so the Allen plant was built in 19, I think it came online in 1959. I may have some of these numbers off or some of these years, but around 19, say mid 50s, it came online. And that was MLGW. That was the city of Memphis. The city of Memphis wanted to operate its own plant. Mid 60s, TVA started to lease that plant. We took full ownership, if I'm correct, mid to late 60s, operated it, owned it, I believe, in the mid 80s. We bought it,
Hmm.
purchased it. And then we ceased operations in the mid 2000s, I want to say. I may have my years off. I've not looked at that chart, but the point I want to illustrate is that for a period of time, we were we were not the owners of the plant. So we have entered into an arrangement, if you will, and a memorandum of agreement with those who own the actual coal ash to help with the remediation. So it was found there were trace elements of a lot of things, but the scientists. I'm not a scientist. I may be pretty good in mathematics, but I'm not a scientist. The scientists tell me that you can find trace elements of any of the however many um, what is it, compounds or elements, within anything. And so and there were pipes, and I've been out there several times and I've gotten tours. But right now, what we've all agreed is let's get the coal ash off of there. Let's move it. Let's safely move it. Let's protect public health. Let's protect the aquifer. So that's where we are. But I can research it and see if there was anything, what the numbers were and what that means. But if you hear arsenic, that is a source of concern for anybody.
Okay. Well, but let me ask that someone from TVA or you can follow up because in the chat we have comments and questions. And if you're not able to answer them, we hope that someone can answer them and put them in writing so that they can see those responses. And if they're, uh, and I hope that at some point that we could come back and share that information as well live so that if people still have questions or want some items clarified, we can get those clarified.
Sure.
So there's a question here, and I don't know whether you would know this or not, but did TVA use the 1999 EPA arsenic risk assessment?
I've not heard of the 1999 arsenic risk assessment. Is that a
Okay.
document?
Evidently it's an assessment, and there's a 1999, there's a 2005, and a 2010, and they just want to know which assessment did they use. So we probably I know that we will. It might not be our second meeting with you, it may be the third, but we want to have those experts at the table so that we can talk about the assessments and the details of what's going on with our coal ash at this time and how we came to the conclusions that we came to. Can
Some of this information, I will say, if they will look at Allen Project at TVA.gov, there's a lot of technical information right there for you. Okay,
Allen Project at
TVA.
tva.gov.
Yeah,
Okay. Uh, I'm sure I have a staff person online with us. And Laquibia, if you're there, if you type that in, I would really appreciate that. And that's Allen Project at tva.gov. Can you talk a little more about the process for why the South Shelby landfill was selected and how the community was informed before the selection of the site was made?
absolutely, absolutely. Um, we had over 40 uh, different community outreach meetings uh, before the pandemic. And as we headed into the pandemic, we had after in September, we had September and I think it was the 22nd and late September, we had two virtual public meetings for public safety to talk about the selection of the South Shelby landfill. And so, according to the record of remediation that we were pursuing with TDEC and our MOA partners, it was defined that that was the best. We looked at over 600 in a 600-mile radius. I can't remember the number, but a number of landfills were looked at in terms of one having the capabilities to receive in terms of high quality, the financial capability to continue operations, what they can do, their experience in that. And we issued an RFP, and it came down to, I remember, I think it was 6 or 7. And so after this rigor of evaluation, we selected the South Shelby landfill. That was based upon proximity, the number of touches that we would have in terms of removing the ash and moving the ash via city streets. And that's a 19, I think it's 19 city miles in terms of going down Highway 51 and moving out to 40 and getting it to that, and looking at public health, safety for the drivers, safety for everyone in terms of how we were going to move the ash in encapsulated vehicles. Why are we using encapsulated vehicles? Again, for public safety. It is
And
not,
what's an encapsulated vehicle?
it's positive pressure, meaning that there's no dust, no ash that's coming in or out of the vehicles.
Okay.
So, yes, the vehicles are washed before they leave, and they're washed before they return. So these are not your granddad's dump trucks. They're not going to be rocks popping out and flying off the back and popping windshields. They are encapsulated and enclosed. And so we have looked at every measure to remediate safely and quickly. So that was just the short answer. But this process has been going on, as you can well imagine, for several years to ensure that we are getting this right. And TDEC, everything is in compliance with TDEC. They are the ultimate authority in how do we move this ash.
Okay. Now I have participated in two meetings, and they were held in September. Can you share with us any feedback that you got from the community? I know you all took great notes, and we had several people participating in the process. What were some of your takeaways?
Yeah, that is a good question. One, I've just answered a couple of those. Why did we select the South Shelby? What is the process? Is there any, is the ash toxic? That question. What else? I'm trying to think. Gosh. Hold on one second. I have some FAQs, some frequently asked questions.
Okay.
I think I've covered most of those things. Is how will the CCR be removed?
And what's the CCR?
I'm sorry. That is,
This is alphabet soup now.
yeah, I know. I jumped into it pretty quickly there. Coal combustion residual, the
Okay.
coal ash. How
So
will
the
it be?
coal ash is the CCR.
Yes,
Okay.
that is the technical term for it, I suppose. The coal combustion residual. So it's a little bit easier to say CCR. But how will it be removed?
Oh, let me stop you just a minute. I can't believe you hadn't been there a whole year and they already got you talking their language. Come on, come back to the city of Memphis. Regular, ordinary people. Stuff you didn't say 10 months ago.
I'll just say ash. Okay, the ash,
Yes.
the fly ash, the fly ash. But so yeah, it's so that the anything about protective equipment that we're using for the workers, how we will ensure we will keep the monitoring stations in place. We continue to monitor the groundwater. We continue to monitor the air. So air quality, we use third-party contractors for safety and those consultants to perform those tests for us so that we know we're getting the best. All those things. This is, the highest priority. And it has recently become one of my highest priorities to ensure
Okay.
that we are monitoring this and we're doing it right, and to have full transparency.
So, a couple of things that were discussed during those community meetings uh, you hailed were traffic concerns. Now, I know that that's an issue, especially in that area, because I have some very narrow streets. Well, a very narrow street, which is called Holmes Road, and in some areas it's wide, and in some it's close. The neighbors are complaining about trucks on Tullahoma, on Getwell, and where we have very narrow roads. So I do know that they were concerned about what's going to happen in that transportation process and what route you were going to use to get to the landfill. Are
Hmm.
you familiar with that? Can you share something with our listening audience this evening?
Sure. It leaves the ash leaves Plant Road, which is where the plant is located. It takes out to I-40, uh, goes I-40 55, takes 55 south to Shelby Drive west to Malone, and straight to the landfill from there.
Okay, so you will not be traveling Holmes Road at all.
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
No, ma'am.
Uh,
It's designed, and that was another consideration, is to ensure that we are using major thoroughfares, not neighborhoods. I believe it's 5494 Malone Road, so
okay.
just south of Holmes.
Hmm.
I've driven it. I've driven it a couple of times, and just checked it to make sure.
And talk to me a little bit more about this special truck, and you call it encapsulated or where things can't get in and out. And so, talk a little bit more about that. So, when it's filled, it's sealed. Is
Yes,
that correct?
that is correct. It's a side loading dump truck. So
Okay.
picture, if I can give you a visual, if you will think of uh, a tanker truck, a milk tanker truck. It's a long silver cylinder.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that, just cut the top off and it has a essentially almost like a bread box type of cover that
Okay.
that slides over. So side loaded, the front loader dumps the ash into, packs it in, waters it down, then it's covered and sealed. And so once it's covered and sealed, it's encapsulated and it's ready for transport. That's the simplified version.
Okay. So when it gets to the landfill, what happens there?
When it gets to the landfill, it drives in and it's unpacked again by front loader, bulldozer, and packed into. So the landfill, we didn't talk a lot about that. So it is a 27-acre site, and it has a 4-inch liner, a 4-inch, 400-year life of the actual liner itself. So imagine a material that's a thick rubberish type of material that will line it, and then it is in its own, if you will, monocell. That's what it's called. It's in its own location. So that monocell has been analyzed and determined that there is no we want to talk about permutation or there's no potential permutation or permutation to the
Okay,
ground.
there you go with that big word again. What is
It's not going to
permutation?
leak. It's not going to leak.
Thank you.
It's not going to leak.
Stay with me now. Stay with me.
Imagine a 27-acre, and this is where I have to use my thought process. A 27-acre large trash bag with 4-inch thick rubber that
Okay.
it's going to be packed down and neatly packed and watered so it doesn't blow up. So when it dries, it's not going to be blown around. And each day it will be compacted to ensure for the safety of anything around for the neighborhood. And it's in a very remote area.
So how do we ensure the safety of the people that will be driving the trucks, loading and unloading the coal ash? Talk to me about your safety precautions.
Well, that's the piece that we were talking about, is that they're in an encapsulated uh, vehicle, so they never come into contact with the ash.
Okay.
They're inside of a vehicle, and so it's air conditioned, climate controlled, and so that is the whole process. That's why we are using these types of vehicles. They never touch it. So
So while we're talking about that vehicle, one of the questions in our comment section is it says, can you please share the RFPs for toxic coal ash removal process? So basically, they're asking, did you issue an RFP? And they just want to know some information about that process.
oh, absolutely, yeah. There was an RFP issued for the coal ash for removal for the whole process. So that's a public document. So I'm sure it's out there.
Okay, so we would like a little more detail on that. So did you have one response, two responses, or why did you select the proposal that we're currently discussing?
Right. And that's what I spoke about in terms of selecting. We narrowed it down to 6 landfills.
Hmm.
We looked at a 600-mile radius and our ability to do that. And then we pulled it back and narrowed it down to 6 different landfills. And we selected Republic at the South Shelby.
Was it because it was cheaper? It was closer? You got to have some metrics. You use something
Oh,
to decide.
several was the first metric was safety.
Okay.
So their safety. So start there, and everything else comes after that. So we looked at they had all the permits, they had the record, they had and they presented the proposal. The others, there were several people who, in that final stage, couldn't meet the bar at which the standards that we were proposing, that we had to have. There was, I mean, it just couldn't be. Again, the special trucks, your experience with removing this type of material, your ability to guarantee or to have it for the period of time in which we need it. We can't go out and just put it in any landfill and then have the expectation that 30 years from now, 40 years from now, 50 years from now, that organization, we need financial stability. You have to look at those there were a number of factors. So those RFPs were public documents. Again, we're an agency of the federal government. It's going to be and you can look at again that website that I mentioned, the Allen project at tva.gov.
Okay, I wrote it down. Allen, Allen, project, project,
Yeah,
at tva.gov. That's for our listening audience. So as we move forth and schedule other meetings, because of the kind of questions that we're getting, we may want to provide a sample so people can see what we're talking about here tonight. We have
right.
another question or concern here from Brady Watson. It says Memphis has the highest energy burden in the country. What is TVA doing to lower that as opposed to making donations that address the symptoms rather than the cause? But let me share before you share so that the general public will know that Councilwoman Robinson asked for a report from Washington, D.C. We had the Department of Energy come and bring that information before the Memphis City Council about the energy burden. So, the energy burden, so you'll know exactly what it is and what it is not. It is not a function of how much your utilities cost you when we have low electric rates, low water rates, and low gas rates, but it's the total overall bill, the percentage of that bill as it relates to your income. Let me give you an example. You make $1,000 a month, your utility bill should not be more than 4%, 4 to 6% of your income. And your utility bill is a thousand out of the $1,000 is $100. So that makes it 10%. So that makes your energy burden higher. In order to reduce your energy burden, you can do one of two things: make more money, or two, try to reduce the utility cost. And that's something that we all can do. And third thing, you can reduce your usage as well. But the energy burden is the relationship between what your energy bill costs, the total energy bill, to your income. So we were taught when I went to school in finance that you should never pay more than a fourth of your salary for your housing. But you do know that we have people that do more than that. So now I'm going to allow you to respond to his his concern about what is TVA doing to help the citizens in the valley reduce their energy burden.
Well, yeah, that's a very good question, and it speaks spot on to a lot of things that we're doing, including, and I'll just share some programming just initially. So there's the Share the Pennies program, which you're aware of. We partner with MLGW on that. We being TVA, we've donated over $1 million to Share the Pennies, and that goes to weatherization. So a lot of factors, and we're going to spend some time with this here because this is important.
It
Uh,
is important.
it's extremely important, and it's important to me, not only as a TVA employee, but also as a citizen of Memphis and our overall economic development here in our city. We have a beautiful city, and because there are two factors in that energy burden calculation. One is income. So with a lower income, it's a lot easier to have a higher percentage of your income have to meet your energy costs. But the share of the pennies program, which is we help. There's the round bill up program where you can say, okay, for every, if I have 98 cents, just make it $1. So those 2 pennies goes to help people, seniors, people who are on fixed incomes, and people who are just in need. So we work with MIFE on that. There's also the Home Uplift program. It's another weatherization program we have in Memphis. Unlike assistance that help paying the power bill each month, this goes in and we give or help to aid families and homes that need repairs. If you've got windows that are, there's a breeze coming through your window because of caulking, or if there's an older HVAC unit that's not efficient, we help with those things. And so we have targets in terms of the employees who work directly on those programs, and they work here in my region. And so that is really exciting for us to be able to work and to help people. Those are direct. I mean, that really helps some people. And I know some people that we've helped too. Participants, we say save an average of 30% on their monthly utility bill. So that's helpful. That's the monthly utility bill. So that's gas, light, and water. So that's the overall bill, not just the electric. So let's talk about that. And then if you look at, we've invested over $3 million in energy efficient training and workshops, and $350,000 for a mobile weatherization lab to train contractors. So we're looking for contractors who can actually help get certified in weatherization to perform this. So there's a circular, if you will, economic development aspect to this. You're helping those who need the help, but you're also helping contractors to get licensed so they can help and provide the services. That's really exciting to me. In my past role as president of the Black Business Association, that's one of the things that we looked at is how can we create jobs? How can we create businesses, and if not jobs for people? And so moving towards wealth creation in our community. And one of the fastest ways is to work for yourself. But if you work for yourself, let me make sure everybody understands this. You're gonna work harder. I mean, I think you can identify that. I would imagine Councilwoman Robinson is gonna work really hard. There's a difference. I mean, let's not talk about that though right now. That's another conversation.
So as we talk about the energy burden, and it's how much you pay for your utilities in relationship to your income. Why is the Ford plant so important in our community right now?
Woo! The Blue Oval.
Will that help me with my energy burden if I decide I want to go to work?
Absolutely. So you got to look at the reasons why Ford chose to come to the Memphis mega site. It's called the Memphis mega site for a reason, because it's in the shadow of Memphis. It's 50 miles, 40 miles away, really from, if you live in Cordova, it's like 35, 40 miles. It's get on I-40 and you're there. By the time you set your dial on the radio, you're there. But for over 20 years or more, plus or minus, TVA, along with the Tennessee Department of Economic Development, along with Hayward County and the adjacent communities up there, look for how they could use all this contiguous land. So you had to have first the land, and then once you have the land, you had to aggregate it so it could be one site. And then you had to look at, okay, how can you also have all the land, but does it have access to the resources and the labor force in order to achieve what needs to be achieved? And then you have to have the support of the state, and you have to have reliable, low cost energy. That's key. And so we bested, as I understand, about 26 other communities, not throughout the country, throughout the world for this plant. And Ford is proposing to manufacture the F-150 Lightning, which will be their electric 150. That is the flagship vehicle for Ford. That is huge. And so they are proposing to employ somewhere upwards of 6,000 people. Those are auto worker jobs, and they pay nice. And then you have the potential for the surrounding suppliers, so that they will make the trucks, but then you have everybody else around who is who's going to supply that. So all the ancillary businesses and organizations that have to support that. So we're the nation's third largest, provider of public power. But also, if you'll think about this, we are now. You look at who else that we have in our region. We have Volkswagen, Toyota, Mazda, Nissan, General Motors, and now Ford in the valley. So we're a little. Not little. We're actually pretty big now in terms of manufacturing automobiles in our region here.
Okay. So looks like Brady Watson, or is that a O? It is for A, Brady. It says, why has TVA done away with public listening sessions during board meetings and silenced the public's voice?
I don't think we've done away with public listening sessions altogether. Our offices are closed, and we are in a pandemic. We haven't opened our offices to we're on federal mandate. We don't go into our offices because of the United States. President of the United States has mandated that we not come in as federal employees. But there are written comments accepted, but we are not in our offices. So that's. But you just such as we're doing right here. I mean, we can talk directly this way.
Okay. He also states that TVA plans to invest in methane emitting fossil gas plants and pipelines. How is that consistent with your aspiration to be net zero by 2050?
Natural gas is a way for us to get to where we want to be. We need flexible gas. The Allen combined cycle plant is considered a more renewable energy source.
Okay. So
it's natural gas.
Okay. So the natural gas, we're using that to help us get to our goal of zero in 2050. Is that correct?
I think, yes, it's zero in 2050. In 2035, I believe it's 70%.
Okay.
And then it kinks downward from there to zero in 50. And in order to get that, we are adding solar, wind, and so 70% carbon reduction by 2030 to get us to about 80% by 2035, with the aspirations of getting to zero carbon emissions by 50. Hold on, let me make sure. And then you've got, again, solar, wind, we've got hydro, but you look at that there. But please remember, what are the 5 nines? If you got too much solar and you have snow packed on, it's February in Memphis, Tennessee, and snow and ice are packed on your solar panels, you don't want to talk about that. You want to still make sure that the power is working, right? So that's why the natural gas it's called an integrated supply. So how do you balance all of these different things, and still achieve the reliability that we have?
So Justin Pearson said, "Do you have a sense of how much coal was burned at the Allen plant since the 1960s?"
How
So
much?
there's yes, how much do you have any idea? I don't know if anybody has an answer to that, but do you have a sense of how much coal was burned there since the 60s?
Um, we might be able to get it for him.
Okay, okay. But that's something that he is interested in knowing. And we have a comment here that it's great to have an African American man from Memphis leading TVA. It puts a new meaning to power. Proud of you, man. And it's somebody you must know him, the seventh night, because I don't know who that is.
The seventh night. I don't know. I may have to think about it for a second.
But and I know, and I'm proud to know that you're studying, you've learned a whole lot. In 10 months, you have really, really, really grown, and you're speaking very intelligently about. And when you start speaking their jargon, I went, wow, they've already indoctrinated. So we don't have but about 5 minutes left, and I want the community to know that we're going to continue this conversations. Share your questions with me so that I will have them for our next meeting. We'll let you know when we talk about this topic again. And I have several other questions that I have not been able to get to or ask because we have such great audience participation. But before we leave here today, I want to talk about community outreach. And you have talked about some of the things that you're doing in the community right now. And we just want to know I know you talked about companies that you supported, but what does your footprint look like in Memphis? So, how many people are working here for TVA, and where are you located so we can find you? And just talk
Sure.
to us about what's going on with TVA right here in Memphis, Tennessee.
In Memphis, Tennessee, we have about almost 90 employees. And so that includes at the Allen plant, we have transmission employees. Transmission, if you'll see our transmission towers around town. Some of those are MLGW, but coming in, we have we have a Cordova substation. Then you have just other administrative workers. But in our region here, we've got about 388. I talked about the scope of the region. It's almost 400 people here in the region, which is it's a lot of people. And so doing work all day, every day. Name a job.
Average salary.
Oh,
So
very
we
good.
want to know. We want to know because we're trying to reduce our energy burden.
Let me put it like this. Our employees are electrical engineers, and they are civil engineers. They are multiple advanced degreed. We have a number of, and then we do have union workers who are working, electricians who are working at union scales, the higher level, government, federal government employees. So think about it like that. I don't have any. I can, if I did, I could probably tell you, but I just know that it's going to be, it's okay. It's okay. These are highly trained, highly dedicated, committed people who have a career.
So, are you doing anything in our schools to encourage our young people to become engineers?
Absolutely. I didn't mention the number of things in terms of our STEM grants that we're giving for science, technology, engineering, and math. Biologists. We have a river system that we help to maintain. Botanist. You name it, we have it. It's an amazing place, and I really would love to be able to get into all that because we need to talk. People need to know. I learned about TVA in the 9th grade at
Right.
Miss
But
Nero.
we're going to get to that. And I hate to cut you off. We only have a few seconds left on our clock. I want to thank you, Mark Yates, for being here and TVA and the people who are working in the background to make this possible. I want to thank our listening audience. I want to thank the members of District 3 for supporting us on tonight and the citizens of Memphis, letting us know that you are interested in what's going on in your own community. Want to thank again the Kazukian Network for helping us sponsor this evening. I want to thank the staff for staying up. Thank you, Lakivia. We appreciate you as well. Mark, thank you for being my guest on today.
You're welcome.
And
Thank
I want everyone to have a good and pleasant night until we meet again. Good night.